Alright guys, today I just want to go over my PlayStation 1 collection for the year 2023. Let's get started. Alright, first off we got demo disc. I think this one has, yeah, it had Crash Bandicoot on it. I think this came with this box system right here. Next up we got Arcade Greatest Hits from Midway. I don't know, nothing really too much to say here. It's got, you know, Asteroids, Tempest, Missile Command, a lot of the older arcade games. Next up we got Battle Arena Toshinden. It's kind of a crappy 3D fighter. It was one of the first games that came out on PlayStation. I think this was a launch game. If it wasn't a launch game, it definitely came out in the first year, and it shows. I mean, it's clunky, graphics are crappy. Definitely not as good as Tekken. Alright, next up we got The Bombing Islands. I picked this up in a random big PS1 lot a while ago. Maybe I just don't get the game, but like it's some weird puzzle game that involves you trying to blow up islands, and I got bored of it in about 3 minutes. Next we got Breakout. It's Breakout. Alright, got Breath of Fire 3. It's a cool JRPG. I think I got about 10 hours into it and then I kind of dropped it. I love the art style. Absolutely love the art style. The 2D sprites on top of the 3D backgrounds really is just absolutely fantastic and has aged very well. And the battle animations are incredible, especially some of the bosses in this game. I mean, the sprite work is absolutely insane. The cover art is pretty dumb, I think, but if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, I mean, look how gorgeous this inside art is. I mean, you just don't see games having stuff like this anymore. Like, this artwork is just absolutely incredible. Alright, next up we got Bug Riders. Yeah, this game is terrible. I mean, I tried playing it, but it's just got the worst controls I've ever felt. It's like a racing game in the air where you're riding on bugs, and I couldn't recommend it. Next up, Burst Trick Wakeboarding, I think it's called. Yeah. It's cool. I played it for like 10 minutes. It's fine. This was at one point, it might still be, the lowest valued game I have in my collection. I think the app I use, GameEye, it valued it at $2 complete in box. And, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've seen this game a billion times at every game store I've ever been to, so. Cool Borders 3. I don't think I've actually played this one. I think I picked it up in like a big offer-up lot or something. Yeah. Alright, Crash Bandicoot 1. Got this actually on a pretty good deal on eBay. I think it was $30 for a Black Label complete in box. You're not really seeing this game that cheap, usually. But anyways, yeah, Crash Bandicoot 1. I used to really not like this game as a kid. I used to be more of a Crash 2, Crash 3 fan, but over the years, I have grown to absolutely love this game, especially compared to all the other Crash games. This game just has so much heart and soul. I think graphically, it is probably aged the best out of the original PS1 games. The game just has so much charm, and honestly, I think it is right up there with some of the greatest 3D platformers of all time. Next up, Crash 2. Absolutely love the gameplay changes in this game. I'd say mechanically, out of the original 3 games, this is probably the best game to actually play. But, you know, there are some things I like in the first game a little better. Like, graphically, the art style, I think, is better in the first game. But overall, I would say this is definitely the superior game to play. Crash 3. This is probably my favorite game of all time. It's tied between this and Crash Twinsanity. I think this is the first game I ever actually remember playing on my father's PlayStation 1. But yeah, I mean, this game is great. It has some problems with the vehicles, and I don't like that in this game they introduced momentum-based jumping. It can kind of throw you off sometimes, but otherwise, it's still a great game. Crash Team Racing. This is probably the best kart racer ever created. I like this better than any Mario Kart game, and I certainly like it a hell of a lot better than Mario Kart 64. I think that game is trash, but anyways. Yeah, I would say this is probably the best Crash game ever made. I know I just said that for Crash 2, but in terms of just polish and what it did for the genre, Crash Team Racing is absolutely fantastic. Alright, next up I got the Crash Bandicoot Collector's Edition. This one was Crash 3, CTR, and Crash Bash. I guess I'll take this time to talk about Crash Bash, because I don't have a Black Label copy. Crash Bash is a crappy little party game. Really can't recommend it to anybody. This is the first non-Naughty Dog developed Crash game, and it shows. Everything about it just doesn't feel right, and it's just generally not fun, especially by yourself. Alright, next up, got the Toy Story 2 game for the PS1. This is a fun game. If I remember correctly, it's actually developed by these same people who made Wrath of Cortex, and the music is done. I know for sure the music is done by the same guy who did Wrath of Cortex, which is just kind of interesting because I think this is technically a better game than Wrath of Cortex. So they probably had more development time, or it was just easier to make or something. But this is a fun 3D collectathon. Alright, next up I got Final Doom. I've tried playing Doom on console before. It's just not the way to play it. This is a fine version of the game, but if you're going to be playing Doom, you need a keyboard and mouse. Alright, next up got Final Fantasy VII. Supposed to be, you know, the greatest JRPG ever made. Haven't played it. I have played the remake, and I like the remake, so I probably would like this game. I can't really get past the, like, block people aesthetic of all the, or not aesthetic, but the choice to make all the characters like blocky, and just the way they did it I think is so corny, and I think it's aged absolutely terribly. I know there's mods that you could do on like the PC version to make the characters look right, but I just can't get past that. Final Fantasy VIII. I would say of the 3 Final Fantasies on PS1, or mainline at least, this has the coolest art style to me and just coolest aesthetic, just the way everything looks. I haven't played it, but I know it's riddled with gameplay issues. It's riddled with story problems compared to 9 and 7. I think it'd be cool. Everyone wants to clamor for, you know, the Final Fantasy IX remake to come out and for them to finish Final Fantasy VII remake. But I don't really hear people talk about getting this game remade when this game's the one with all the, you know, gameplay issues, story issues. I feel like this game would really do well with a good remake. Alright, next up got Final Fantasy IX. I recently just completed this game. It took me like over a year. I would finish a disc, put it off for a few months, do another disc, put it off for a few months, and then eventually finish it. It's a great game. It really is. The going back to fantasy, you know, in Final Fantasy really did this game well, and I think it just looks so charming, and I don't really think it needs a remake. I think this game is pretty much fine the way it is. Yeah, it's just a great game. Next up, got Frogger. Not much to say there, but a lot to say with Frogger 2, Swampy's Revenge. This is one of the best 3D well, is it a 3D platformer? I don't know how to describe this game. It's not really a platformer. It's a Frogger game. Would you consider Frogger like a platformer? It's kind of weird. It's kind of its own style of game. It's like a lane, you know, enemy obstacle dodging. I guess in that way it's a platform. Anyways, top-down platformer. This is a great game, and they really didn't have to try this hard. Like, they could have just released Frogger, you know, what they released before this on the PS1 and just called it good. But they really went way beyond the Call of Duty for this game. The story mode with the cutscenes and just like the way you interact with levels and the camera changes and just like this game is absolutely fantastic. I would say really it's one of like the best platformers on the console. Yeah, great game. Next up got Gex. I've tried playing it. I hate the controls, and I'm not a fan of like the obnoxious 90s attitude of Gex. And there's a good reason why you know, Gex isn't getting any new games now. Next up got Gran Turismo and Gran Turismo 2. I mean, they're good games, but is there really a reason to go back to these when the newer Gran Turismos exist? Not really. Next up, Jet Moto 2. This is a fun one, interesting one. Hard to go back to just because the frame rate is so abysmal. But cool concept for a game. You play as these like on these futuristic like jet skis that are riding over the land. Cool concept for a game. This would kind of be cool for them to bring back. Well, actually, I think there was 4 Jet Motos on the PS1. I don't know if they ever made a Jet Moto after that. That'd be interesting to look into. Next up, Kiss Pinball. Yeah, there was just anything that could be created, it exists on the PS1. Next up, Metal Gear Solid, what is this even called? Metal Gear Solid VR Missions. I used to have the first game, Greatest Hits. I got rid of it just because I don't keep any Greatest Hits copies anymore. But yeah, I've got the VR Missions game. Haven't played it, but I'm sure it's exactly what it sounds like. Next up, got Mortal Kombat Trilogy. I mean, it's Mortal Kombat. I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be the 3rd game. I'm not the hugest Mortal Kombat fan, and the older Mortal Kombats are pretty clunky. Not really one I'm playing that often. Okay, next up, got Monster Seed. Got this for cheap in an offer up long time ago. It is, from what I understand, just like a Pokemon-ish style, like JRPG. This is kind of like baby's first RPG. I played about 20 minutes of it, and like the dialogue is just so basic, and this is meant for little kids, but like, why would you play this when you could just play Pokemon? Like, this is really just not. This just ain't it. Next up, got NFL Blitz. All right, got AIDS. Next up, got Oddworld Abe's Exodus. I think this is the sequel to Abe's Odyssey. I don't know which one's supposed to be better. I've only played this one for about 10 minutes. Very aesthetically pleasing art style. The art style has definitely aged extremely well. But I don't know, something about the controls. I'm not really into like the cinematic platformer genre. I know it was really popular in the 90s. Yeah, I just couldn't get into it. Alright, next up, got Pac-Man World. This is a cute game. This is another example, kind of like with Frogger 2, where like, they could have just put Pac-Man on the PS1 and called it good. But they really did go like one step beyond. And they gave us a great little 3D platformer. Yeah, it's a great game. Haven't played the remake, but I think this game is good enough. There's really no reason for me to get that. Next up, got Pineby. I'll talk about this game one day. Alright, looks like I got one of these PlayStation Jam Packs. I think this had a Spyro 2 demo? Yeah, Spyro 2 demo. Anyways, Jam Pack. Next up, got Cuber. Again, with these like weird sort of old legacy arcade characters getting games on the PlayStation 1 where they put a lot of effort in. I thought this was originally just gonna be like, it's just Cuber on the PS1. But I tried it out and actually like, it's got cutscenes, like the art style is actually pretty good. Like, I think there's a story mode in this. Like, they put a lot of effort into this when they did not have to. Next up, got Ridge Racer 4. It's Ridge Racer. Next up, got Shrek Treasure Hunt. This is just one of the weirdest games I've ever played. It's like a 3D, like, adventure game where you play as Shrek. I think it came out in, like, 2002? Yeah, 2002. 2 years after the PlayStation 2 came out, we got Shrek on the PS1. This is just a bizarre game. Next up, got SpongeBob SquarePants Super Sponge. Not the greatest SpongeBob game. It's a fine enough 2D platformer. You could definitely get a better SpongeBob game than this, though. Next up, got Spyro the Dragon. Right behind Crash. I'd say Spyro is probably my second favorite platformer series. But I don't really like the first game. This is one I actually really never played as a kid. I always played 2 and I always played 3. And I had played some of the PS2 games as a kid. The most I ever played a Spyro one was on the demo on Crash 3. So I know the first world very well. But yeah, I don't really like Spyro 1 that much. I just don't like how... well, first off, I don't like the controls. I feel like his controls are just a little too loose, and they really perfected it in Spyro 2 and 3. Especially not having a hover move. Oh my god, you really feel it in this game. Otherwise, it's still a fun game, and I'd really recommend it to anybody who's a fan of 3D platformers. Spyro 2, however, I think is an absolutely fantastic game. And is one anybody should play. Absolutely love the levels in this game. Love the music. The controls are just so tight, and it's so fun to break this game too. And then Spyro 3. This used to be a game I was a lot harsher on. I mean, I remember loving it as a kid, and then when I got in my teen years, I was like, I hate Spyro 3. Because of all the extra characters and stuff. But honestly, playing it again, I would say it's almost as good as Spyro 2. It's a very solid game. Yeah, some of the characters are a little annoying, especially the Agent 9 first-person levels. Oh my god, they're horrible. And obviously the boxing in the game is terrible. But it's a very small part of the game. And the rest of the game is absolutely fantastic. And just the fact that they were able to fit so much content in this game on just one PS1 disc is insanely impressive. Alright, next up, got Tekken 2. Tekken 2. Alright, next up, got Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2. Not my favorite Tony Hawk game. I know this is some people's favorite Pro Skater. My favorite Tony Hawk games are all on the PS2. But this is still a fun one. I think it's, you know, kind of funny to play it, going back to it, just seeing the graphical style. It's funny that, like, when this game came out, like, the human models in this were, like, thought to look realistic and look like the people. Like, that, oh my god, the graphics were so good. Like, that's what people thought about this when this came out. And just going back and just seeing how ugly and disgusting the character models look, in a funny way. It's funny. Next up, got Tiger Woods 99. Alright, next up, got WWF. Yeah, WWF SmackDown. Alright, and lastly for my American games, we have the X-Files. This is actually, out of every single game in my entire collection, this is the oldest game I have. And what I mean by that is this is the game that I've had in my hands for the longest out of any of them. Because I know for sure this copy was my father's, and he had this brand new. Every other game I have has been collected after the fact, or I used to have games that were older, but I sold them or lost them. But I know for sure this game was my father's, and I've had it for the past 23, 24 years, however long he had it, and I know he had it when the game came out. Alright, and then lastly, we'll just go over the Japanese games I have, which I only have the Crash Bandicoot games. Oh, I guess I'm going backwards, but whatever. Crash Team Racing, the Japanese version. I really love the art style of Japanese Crash on the PS1. It's just, you just don't see stuff like this on American media at all, and I just think it's really cool. Then you got Crash 2, again, cool art style. I got these all on eBay for, surprisingly these were very cheap. I think it was less than $30 for all 4 of the PS1 Crash games. Well, 4 not including Bash. Crash 3, and then lastly, Crash 1. Although, I'm pretty sure there's 2 different Crash 1 like art styles on for Japan. So I don't know if this is the first style or the second style or what, but yeah, this is Crash 1. Okay guys, well, that was my PS1 collection for so far for 2023. Thanks you guys for watching.